Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Monday Discourse for today, August 15th, 2022. Halfway through August already, getting close to September. Fall is coming. Hi, I'm Tristan. Long time no see. Sorry about that. I had a few Mondays in a row where things came up. Specifically, my wife has a job that is like a real job that grown-ups have. And she was basically running a conference, or part of running a conference for 2 weeks. And when you're running a conference, you can't take care of a baby. And I can't take care of a baby and stream at the same time. So, yeah, that's how we are currently doing. But the conference is over, and we are back. And as far as I know, Mia is also back. So this will all be a very fun day for everybody. So yeah, my name's Tristan. I am the host of two projects right now. I've got Step Back, the channel you're probably watching this on right now, the YouTube channel where I talk about the past and its importance for understanding how the world is today. And It's Probably Not Aliens, the podcast that I do with Scott Nicewonder from NerdSync about about this history, ancient astronaut theory, like pseudo-history, pseudo-archaeology, UFO stuff, conspiracy theories, that whole realm. And we have a lot of fun with it. It's very good. I nominally stream Mondays at noon, so you can check that out. And if you want to help me make more of my work, you can help me out monetarily at patreon.com/stepbackhistory, where you see videos early for as little as 84 cents a month. You could also get a channel membership if you prefer to keep everything on YouTube. That is a thing that I am going to try my best to keep the same. Like, if the equivalent amount of money given on channel memberships will be, we'll have the same rewards as being a patron. So hopefully that makes sense. Basically, if you're a $5 channel member on Step Back, you'll get the same perks through the YouTube system that a $5 patron would. Also, if you've got something like Amazon Prime, then you can actually get... if you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime subscription every month. And if you choose Step Back, it helps us out at no extra cost to you. Very much worth using for whatever streamer you want to use it on. Just make sure you use it if you do have Amazon Prime. But please. But if you use it on me, I'd be very grateful. If you have anything else that you'd like to use, super chats, bits, Twitch subscriptions, they're obviously not necessary, but they're very much welcome. My latest video was on the repeal of Roe v. Wade and the sort of history of the religious right and how the reversal of the rights of people to control their own reproduction is part of a greater project that ultimately is a desire to bring back racial segregation. So there's that. My next video that I am currently editing the script for, I'm currently today's project is to go through the script and do all of the jokes, to insert joke. It's a two-part video. So I'm doing part one. Part two is going to come out in October on the history of Russia, specifically the history of post-Soviet Russia. So that kind of things. So there's that. Currently, the plan is to have it out for August 29th, but also to have it out for patrons by next Monday. So here's hoping. Kind of have a new setup going where I have to be a little bit more firm in the due dates where I finish videos. So the pressure's on. Yeah, and also if you want to submit questions to future streams, I'm going to put a link in the chat. But if you so desire, you can go to stepbackhistory.com/stream question. Link is in the chat. I'm also going to have a link on the call page when we get Mia on, so deal with that. And of course, if this is your first time here, say hello, because we have a really great community in these streams. And as some people have pointed out, that now I've got the Restream bot going. So now, in either chat that you are participating, you get both chats mixed together. So you can now communicate. Twitch and YouTube can finally communicate together, and everyone can stop pretending that I ignore one in favor of the other. Oh boy. Okay. What else? I think that is all the things. So let's get Mia up in here. There she is. I was looking on my Discord friends list, and I was like, where's Mia? But I found her. And there's, ooh, fancy portrait mode. Oh no, I cannot hear you. It might be on my end. 1 second. I did a thing where I updated, or I reset my computer, which is the worst thing one can do because it resets all of my devices, and my devices are annoying. All right, try talking now.
Hello, my name.
Hello, you can be heard.
I can be heard. Perfect.
Hello, how are you? It's been a minute.
I'm good. It's been a minute. I've also had like a thing happen every Monday for like a while, including getting like super COVID.
Yeah, I did hear you
Sucks.
You did mention that, I think you mentioned like about a year or so ago that you were slightly immunocompromised, so I was a little concerned.
I get COVID so much. I don't even know if I am slightly immunocompromised. I just get COVID like a lot. This is like the 4th or 5th time I have it.
Oh my god.
I legitimately believe that like new viruses are being made inside of me.
Oh no. You're the patient zero. You invented COVID.
Kinda. Yeah, my broken shitty body created COVID. No, but I actually like started to feel better like a few days ago, and like I was down to start streaming, and then like 3 hours ago or something like that, my body was just like, oh, you thought you were free? You thought you were free from the COVID-19?
Oh no.
And then, here I am.
You made it. I appreciate it. How has besides that, have you been doing all right? Has everything been going okay?
I have been good. I went on holiday during the summer, so I could escape.
Sweden is
great.
so well off that even the YouTubers get a holiday.
But we don't get a holiday. I had to force myself to not work.
Yeah.
If I had had a normal job, I would get 6 weeks vacation.
12 months vacation a year, as per Scandinavian norms.
Yeah.
Or what is it? It's the French who are on vacation all the time, right?
Yeah, the French are always on vacation. The French and like the Spanish.
Yeah.
People always make fun of like the Mediterranean countries for being the ones who never have to work. But
if I remember correctly,
in their countries, of course, like who would work?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the way it works in most European countries, but I remember in France, like they get like a thing where they get like 2 weeks off, like every 5 weeks in the school system anyway, and they typically use that to go on vacation.
Oh, I think we have that too in our school systems here. Like we have something called a sports holiday, like in the spring, and everyone fucking goes to real holidays then too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the way that it works in, like, because in France they don't get, I don't know, actually I don't even know if this works the way in Sweden either, but here in the Americas, because, our cultural hegemony has just invaded everywhere, we have summers off. In America, it's June and July, and in Canada, it's July and August. But I imagine that, and France doesn't do that. They go to school through the summer, but they get like a few weeks off every few weeks, basically, as like a compensation. I don't know how it works in Svithiod, but...
Me neither. I don't really know how it's supposed to work, because technically I am self-employed, so...
I was thinking more like school, like when you went to little Swedish school.
Oh, I don't remember that.
When you were
8 years ago, I don't remember shit from that.
Schoolgirl Mia.
was so long ago. I don't remember anything. Like, I legitimately... And they also changed the entire system of how it works the second I left. So, like, I don't relate to anyone younger than me. When they have different grade systems now. Sorry, this had nothing to do with the stream overall, but, like... when I went to school, we had 3 grades. It was passing, failing, and passing very well. Those were the grades. And the second that I left school, the second that I went to university in like 2012, they changed it to be like the fucking American system where you get like A and B and C. So I don't understand that system, and I never have. But every kid here now talks about like getting grades like that. So I don't know how the hell that works.
The primer is A is you did very well. Or if you're in my family, A means that you are not in trouble. B means you did basically, yes, good. You didn't exceed expectations, but you did well. So solid, good on you. So basically like A is pass very well, B is pass, C is pass, but like only okay, mediocre. Think of it, here's a way to teach you. Think of it like tier lists, but there's no S. So get rid of S. So A is the top. Then B tier, things that are good, but not great. C is like, okay, fine. This was a little underwhelming. D is like, this sucked, but we're not enough to fail you. And then we just skipped E for some reason. And F in America is you failed. And in Canada, we decided to go with R for remedial because it was nicer. And if you get an R in something, in a class, you have to take it again, basically.
Yeah.
But I hate it because it also tries to... it tries to circumvent... It tries to create competition in a way that really shouldn't. And I think that, in a lot of ways, pass-fail is a much smarter way to do classes. Because then... you don't have to worry about individual numbers and shit like that. So if I was running the school system, everything would be run on pass fail. I feel like that's a lot better. And then it encourages people it gives you a lot more wiggle room based on different ability, and it lets you have more creativity within your thing, because you're not going to be like, oh no, I have to make sure that I do this project directly as it is instructed, or else I will not get the high grade, and then parent will get mad at me. I don't know. My parents, I grew up in a house where the amount of love you received was directly related to your grade point average. So their favorite kid at any given time was whoever had the highest average in school.
God. I've come to realize, like, as an adult, just how chill my own parents were. And when I hear like other people talk about how their parents were,
they were very. My parents were overall.
They were happy.
They were overall very chill people. Just that. My mom specifically had like this extremely overwhelming emphasis on the importance of education, and was was chill on literally everything else, but was very not chill when it came to school. And as somebody who was a solid D student, did not go well.
See, this is why I preferred the Swedish system before they changed it, because as long as you got a passing grade, you're good with like a few well passing. I would have been a solid like C student my entire like academic life. So I'm very thankful that I got to be like artificially inflated by that.
Yeah, I think I think that's fine. Because the thing is, if you put like percentages or direct numbers on things, you get this like inflation. Like, I don't know. Did you have to do any TAing when you were a master's student at all?
No.
Okay. So when I was a TA, you have to grade papers. And I was always like getting, like, every time I marked papers, I would get people who would come to my office hours because they're like, I need to go to business school. You need to increase this number, please. I know that I just got a regular A, but can you make it like a bigger A so that I can go to business school?
Yeah.
And it's like... And the thing is that happens in all of the university things. So what happens is that there's sort of like a grade inflation that keeps going up. As like more and more of people's lives depend on doing certain numbers in competition in classes.
And getting like the points that you need.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
I have graded papers as part of like, because I've been a substitute teacher, so it's not like not full on TAing, but like I've done a little bit of grading papers in quizzes and stuff like that. And every single time a kid would come up to me like asking me to like be lenient on a test or some shit like that, I would always reject it. I was a hard ass as a substitute teacher. People expected a fun time when the substitute teacher comes in to watch like a show or some shit like that, but I was afraid of losing my job. So why on earth would I fake a grade?
First of all, I was terrible at grading. Everybody hated, like, I liked teaching. I hated grading. And every student hated the marks I gave them. And the one time I almost lost my job over it was when the teacher wanted me to give a student 100% on her paper. On her, like, final paper for a second-year university course.
And it was not 100%.
It was good. It was very good. I was like, this is like, I gave her, I think, like 91 or 92 on the paper, like very, very good. And I was like, the thing is, like, in the thing, you're afraid to do like 100% is like, it's impossible. Like, and then I'm like, wait a minute, is that a way that we should do things? Should it really be impossible? And then the next year, she started in the same graduate program that we were in, and it was a little awkward because obviously someone like that is going to end up becoming a master's student. So, if you're watching this, Sarah, I'm sorry. I liked her a lot as a student too, so like I felt bad about that, about the drama that it caused. But yeah, other than that, how was vacay?
It was good. I'm still in a sort of like COVID brain haze, so I don't actually remember too much of it. But it was great. I went to Croatia.
Ooh.
And
beaches.
Saw a lot of beaches. There's a place called Zlatni Rat, which is like the Golden Horn Beach, which is just a nice
Golden Horde beach. Lots of horses. Lots of mare's milk.
Yeah, it's just horses everywhere. The Golden Horde will live on forever.
In Croatia.
In Croatia, on an island in Croatia. No, but I also managed to see Emperor Diocletian's retirement palace.
Ooh.
So that was fun. Unfortunately, I don't know enough about Roman history to actually fully appreciate it, but it was very fun.
I always forget stuff like I always forget that Croatia was Italian at a certain point.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
all right, like that whole area like reeks of like Venetian Italian energy and like Roman energy, but they all speak a Slavic language, which is a sort of like it doesn't really compute because you'll see like a nice like actual Venetian buildings and then someone will come up and just speak to you in what sounds like Russian.
Yeah. Does Croatia still have an Italian minority, or is that like long gone?
Oh, I think that's long gone. I think that's gone since probably the border adjustments since the World War. But you know, I think things have gotten. I met a few Italians, but I don't think that they really lived there.
Okay, I forgot about how hardcore the border adjustments were after the World Wars. Like I'm always just like every time. I always find something very amusing in the way that we write history, because I always hear about during a certain time in World War I where the Ottomans did a brutal ethnic cleansing campaign on the Greeks, and then the Greeks did a population transfer on the Turks. It's like, yeah. Interesting phrasing on this, buddy.
Population exchange.
Yeah, that the one where they were like, all right, Turkey, Greece, we're going to take all of the Turks in Greece and all of the Greeks in Turkey, and we're just going to kick them out. And we're not going to talk about this for being like a crime against humanity. We're just going to like roll with this. And no one's going to make a big deal about it until we figure out what to do about Cyprus. And then all bets are off.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big thing about like European history too, where it's like throughout all of human history, right? Like throughout all of European history, like cultural divisions have always been like mixed and mashed everywhere. Like there's been like cultural enclaves and exclaves, and drawing like a hard border anywhere based on cultural lines doesn't really make sense until the 20th century, at which point like people really draw those borders, and anyone who isn't on the right side of the border is like forcibly deported to the side that they belong to ethnically.
Turns out nationalism is an artificial construct that is bad.
It's weird, right?
Because didn't they do that after? It was much more brutal. It's after World War II. Like basically all of the land that Germany lost, like the Germans were like forcibly like kicked off of the land and thrown into.
All the Germans who like lived in like the area that like we most associate with like Prussia, for example, like the eastern bit of Germany, right? Like unless a citizen could prove that they had been like actively anti-Nazi, they were like goodbye.
Goodbye.
Same with the like Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia after the war, where it's like if you could prove that you were like anti-Nazi and you didn't like the Nazis, then you're fine, then you're good, you can stay. But that's a pretty high bar to clear.
If you're in that Venn diagram of oppose the Nazis and alive to talk about it in 1945, then you're then you can stay.
You get to live in the Sudetenland still.
Which
so,
in some ways, like moved. In some ways, I get it because they use the Sudetenland as an excuse to just chomp down Czechoslovakia like some sort of mad paradox game player. But still, turns out, and like I'm reading this book called Culture Warlords. Probably one of the best. It's one of those times where I'm like, I'm going to read this book in like 3 days, type situation, and I'm learning. Well, I kind of knew this, but I'm like learning more about how like there's like Tolkien sort of created this false fantasy that sort of plays into like this Nazi idea of Europe, that there was this primordial past where everybody was of this pure bloodline, when like it's like medieval Europe was like there were North Africans living in this place, there were Jews living all over the place, there was people who spoke like there was, I think like in 1800, there was a survey of France where they found out that less than half of the country spoke French, because there was like all these like local languages and ethnicities and dialects. There were a lot more Roma people back then than there are compared to today. Like there was just like a lot more, there was a lot more ethnic and racial diversity in Europe. And then like you even find things like we still always randomly find like, oh, we just found this random knight who DNA shows that he was like black, and they're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
This is like, okay, maybe Europe wasn't this like, maybe the whole idea of like Europe being this pure fantasy land that all those like, what are those people called? Those neo-Odinist people kind of talk about.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it's
great book.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, the 19th century ruined a lot of shit.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you.
Do the Sorbs still exist? By the way, speaking of which, I know we're talking about but Sorbs. Do they still exist? Because it's a West Slavic group that exists in like Brandenburg, Germany, but it's a Slavic culture.
Mm-hmm. This is why it doesn't work very well today. But like Europeans are like the masters of what I call micro racisms, where like in every European country there's micro racisms towards like people of like for example, there is racism against Belgium. The only justified racism is against Belgians, but then like outsiders might not know that like Belgium is split between its French and its Flemish people. And then even like within its Flemish people, there's like 6 different types of Flemish people, and like they have racisms against each other too. And like it's just until like basically in Europe, every block hates every other block.
Yeah.
Like every street just hates each other.
It's why it's really interesting to me that a lot of like discussions around race have a really like Americanized tone to it, where it's very much like whiteness becomes really homogenized into being just like as a it becomes a monolith of like what whiteness means.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I think the camera cut off a little.
My computer had a little bit of like a brain hemorrhage, and then it came back.
Oh, okay. But like within Europe, like there is obviously a concept of whiteness because white like Europeans freaking invented that shit. But when you look at it like within Europe as well, like we have subdivided it so many times to the point where people will be straight up racist towards like the Greeks, for example, or like the Spanish, especially if you're like if you're like Nordic, which is like white,
the whitest.
you will find people who are just the whitest.
Mia Mulder
they will
white.
be racist towards the French, because the French are like just by virtue of being French, they're like a bit.
Yeah, I actually got a little bit of this recently because I don't experience racism ever, except in sort of semi-micro racisms, because I don't know if you know, but my skin tone can sometimes be defined as swarthy. Sometimes I get defined as olive-skinned or something like that, which results in me getting like very strange conversations because I'm very ethnically ambiguous. I have had like people who are from a certain region think that I'm from their region to the point where they just open conversations in their native language, like just assuming. I had a taxi driver who just assumed that I was Ukrainian the other day because I just looked Ukrainian. And then I also had a Lebanese guy who just started speaking to me in Arabic. And I was like, okay.
I don't know how to tell you this, but I don't do this. My dad has had the exact same thing, actually. My dad is often
Fidel Castro,
mistaken, both for Fidel Castro, to either to be Hispanic or to be Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
Like he is very white.
Yeah, it's more confusing for you because you're half Cuban, but
Exactly. So Fidel Castro is my grandfather.
Quarter Cuban.
Quarter Cuban. But like it's one of those things where it's like I think it's a little bit unfortunate because when we have like an overly simplistic discussion about like race, we sort of like forget a lot of the time that it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
that it's all just completely made up by people who see differences between other people and get into a hissy fit about it.
Yeah. I am the whitest of white. There's like I what's it called? My mom made me take the DNA test. And I had like
you're 100% that bitch, yeah.
Less than 2% non-white. And that 2% is just Ashkenazi. So like it's still like white adjacent. But because I tan well in the summer, I still like get stopped for extra screening at airport security and stuff like that. So yeah, and like it turns out skin color is not a very good determination of where you're from or literally anything except for how much sun you get regularly.
Yeah. And even that, like, I can't tan for shit, but my dad does, so I don't know.
And even on that, because like pale skin evolved as an adaptation to vitamin D deficiency living in northern climates, because you filter out less UV light so you can create more vitamin D. But there are other people who live at the same latitudes as people like you, like for example, like the Inuit people in Canada. are at these sort of northern climates, and they're not white because they ate a lot more organ meat that had vitamin D in good levels in it, and so they just never evolved the sort of like paler skin tone.
Yeah.
Or just
No
like
need for it.
or and probably a similar story for all of the, I don't even know if there's a broad term for like Asian Russian people, like steppes people.
Yeah.
I don't know much about sort of the pallor of people who live in northern Sweden, but I don't who the reindeer herding people, but
I like they, yeah, phenotypically white people.
okay.
But not always. It's the thing. Like I think in Sweden, I think like many of them are like white passing, and I'm gonna say white passing because like if we talk about like racial justice within Sweden, like they are not treated as
Yeah.
other white people are. But some of them, a significant portion of them do have like, you know, more stereotypically Asian characteristics, because they are like, you know, more culturally connected to the Siberian like
Yeah.
genetic haplogroup. What the earth are we talking about?
I don't know. I feel like this is like we are one sentence away from veering into like a very wrong stream.
I know, right? Here's the solution. Race is bullshit, and Sweden should be cut in two.
Yes.
Of Sweden and Samiland, and they can very gladly make the border wherever the fuck they want. Samiland can have my university town. They don't want it, but they can have it.
Just give them random cities, and they can decide which one they want. Yeah.
We did that with their mountains, so you know.
As someone who lives in a country that has every single square meter stolen, I agree with the same thing, except that I should just take it all and carve it up amongst yourself in whatever way you see fit. And then, would you pretty please forgive us and let us stay, because I don't think there's enough room in France for me anymore. I feel like 37 million people going back to Europe would be a bit rough. But
fucked up how
Yeah.
the world is the way it is.
I am genetically the British nightmare, though, because it's like French and German together. The ultimate horror story.
God.
I am Charlemagne. Charlemagne 2.
You're Frankish.
I'm Frankish. Yeah, there you go. That means I must be like secretly Burgundian. I think like by if you average by genetic averaging, that makes me Burgundian.
I love the idea of genetic averaging because like, what the fuck?
You take France, you take Germany, and then between them, I'm actually genetically Swiss somehow because well, no, I don't. If there was a little bit of Italian, then I would be Swiss, just by taking a dot and moving it around. This is how real this is, by the way, everybody.
I'm looking at the exact midway point between Sweden and the Netherlands, which is where I would actually be, and it's
You are
Denmark,
North Sea,
and
and
I don't love the fact that it ends up in Denmark.
you're Danish secretly.
It ends up in the island of Lolland, which is not. That's not right. I don't want to live in Lolland.
I'm sorry, but DNA
I've
tests
been to
say.
Lolland.
I also found out about this, and I have a feeling that this is a thing that you probably already know about, but I learned about this yesterday, and it is possibly the greatest battle that ever happened in human history.
It's the Austro-Hungarian one versus the Ottomans?
Yeah, the Battle of Karansibis. I need to fought a battle between the Ottoman Empire and the Habsburgs that I need to tell everybody about because it is the greatest thing to ever happen. And Paradox will never be able to simulate something like this. So it was a battle that happened in 1788 between the Austrians and the Ottomans. And here's basically the story of how it went. The army of Austria, that had about 100,000 soldiers, was setting up camp around the town. The army's vanguard, a contingent of hussars, crossed the Timish River. I just love... Every time I get into Eastern European history, I'm just like, all these sudden new words I don't even know. To scout for the presence of the Ottoman army. There was no sign of Ottoman forces, but the hussars came across a group of Romani people who offered to sell schnapps to the weary soldiers. Soon afterwards, some infantry crossed the river when they saw the party going on. The infantrymen demanded alcohol for themselves. The hussars refused to give them any of the schnapps. Still drunk, set up makeshift fortifications around the barrels. And a heated argument broke out, and one soldier fired a shot. Immediately, the hussars and infantry engaged in conflict with one another. During the conflict, one of the infantry began shouting, "Turci, Turci," which means Turks. The hussars fled the scene, thinking that the Ottoman army attack was imminent. Most of the infantry also ran away. The army was, however, comprised of Austrians, Serbs, Croats, and Italians, so they didn't have any languages that they could speak with each other, as well as a bunch of other minorities, so that they were just like, everything was confusing. They gave the false warning and ran away. The situation was made worse when the officers, in an attempt to restore order, shouted, "Halt, halt," which was misheard by soldiers with no knowledge of German as, "Allah, Allah." As the hussars fled through the camps, a corps commander, General of Artillery Colloredo, thought that it was a cavalry charge by the Ottoman army and ordered artillery fire. Meanwhile, the entire camp awoke to the sound of battle. The panic caused the incident, demoralized the Holy Roman Emperor Joseph II to the point where he ordered the army to withdraw. 2 days later, the Ottomans arrived and discovered the dead and wounded soldiers and easily took the city. This is the only military history I've ever enjoyed.
Honestly, it's a miracle that the Austro-Hungarian or that the Habsburg monarchy survived as long as it did, considering that they had to. You can't have an army with 8 different languages in it and expect everyone to understand what the fuck is going on.
You can't run a country on incest alone. They tried, but it turns out you need other skills.
They got really good at it.
They got really good at incest. They were like the masters of incest.
Speaking of nothing, we haven't answered a single question.
Oh,
by the way.
yes.
We need to do that. But first, I want to tell a quick story because there's also there's an SCP about the Habsburgs where their incest they do so much incest that they create a cryptid, a species of.
It's called
cryptid.
Carlos II. Yes.
Kind of, yeah. And yeah, he basically becomes like a slender man, but an aristocrat, and whose whole point is inbreeding, and it's just a species of inbred aristocrats.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
this is pretty wild. Okay, so we've got a bunch of questions. A lot have expired, but that's fine. The time, that's this thing. These questions last a month. They expire after a month because, things get, times change. We need to keep things fresh. Okay. But the first question we got here says, so Tristan, I strongly support the way you're raising your kid without posting all his baby pics on social media because I agree with you that kids can't consent to that kind of thing. Yes. Do you think people who feel that way about this issue are going to lose in the long run? Like, I sometimes worry that in 2066, it'll be taken for granted that every detail of your life is public information from the day you're born. I mean, yeah, probably. That is probably a fight that's going to be lost. I made that choice for various reasons, not only because I wanted to be. Okay, I also have a job where I receive death threats on a near daily basis. So I'm a little bit extra secure, and I worked for an organization that had a whole lot to do with privacy and stuff like that. So it's especially on my mind. But I do know that it's not the default, and it won't be in the near future, that's for sure. There was sort of this idea that there was an era of privacy in the 20th century that before then, because everyone lived in a small town, you didn't have any privacy. And then after this, after everyone knows everything is sort of gone as well. I don't know. That's how it seems to be anyway. I don't know if that's a good thing. I doubt it, but it is a thing. All right. Oh, thank you, Meow Nyan, for the $6.99 super chat. From an Asian standpoint, it's interesting to note that the diversity in the Sinosphere mostly unite under a common written language, a really hard one. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's sort of like this whole thing. Like, yeah, we can get into China, and China's like huge amount of ethnic diversity in that country.
It's wild what a continent can do when it's not made up entirely of peninsulas.
But there is a little bit of a cultural imperialism happening because of like these sort of intentional project to like kind of push the Mandarin language, an extremely complicated language, on a bunch of people, especially like in Inner Mongolia, especially in most famously in recent history in Xinjiang province. I'm doing a video right now on the 9/11 truth movement, and I found I found this video by Noam Chomsky where he's talking about the truthers. And he was like, he just said like all of the most prescient shit I'd ever seen. He definitely took the water of life. He can see the future.
Sure, yeah.
Because he was basically like, yeah, the Bush administration benefited from 9/11. All authoritarian regimes did. Like, and he was like, Israel is going to use this to further oppress the Palestinians in the name of stopping terrorism. The Chinese are going to use this to oppress the Uyghurs even more in the name of stopping terrorism. And I'm like, oh my God. And this was like in like 2002 he said this.
Yeah.
Let's see, what's the next one? That's probably like I feel good about it. I feel good about keeping things under wraps because yeah, he can't consent. He is a baby. When he is 13 and he can make his own social media accounts, then we can worry about it. But for now, not so much. Okay. Next, have I been interested in any Quebec/Acadian media lately? I'd recommend bluegrass pop musician Petit Beliveau. Well, thank you. I have never heard of that, but I will write that down. I'll put in my Google Keep.
I've been, speaking of Quebec, I've been playing a little bit of Victoria 2 lately, the map game, and for some reason in every single one of my recent games, Quebec becomes independent and begins to colonize Africa.
Oh my, that one playthrough I did in 2018 is just spreading.
Yeah.
It was actually
invading.
2012. Jangila Empire, yeah. Just the idea. I remember that in that one, Oman was a Quebecois like influence state, like it was like a protectorate.
Protectorate of Quebec.
Okay, here we go. Here's the question that we can both weigh in on. Before the Industrial Revolution, a lot of industrial processes that required the grinding or processing of substances like crops or peanuts used windmills or water mills. As a Dutch person, I'm sure you have a lot to say on that. I don't want to go all Prim, but would it be possible to create modern implementations of this? Nowadays, food processing and the production of natural oils is all done in factories using electrical and formerly diesel motors. And to me, it seems that if we want to make emissions and power usage, that shift to using wind and water mills would be a good way to do this.
It would not be possible to do it in the way of like direct like water power in a windmill to like grind seeds or whatever. That would not be possible. The thing that would probably be more possible is to shift a lot of like heavy agricultural industrial machines to running purely on electricity and not on a combustible fuel, and then powering that electricity with renewables. That could be possible.
Yeah.
But just through the sheer scale of like the modern day agricultural industry, like that would not be possible to do with like a direct converting windmill to directional rotation power. That I don't think, at least so, unless it's a very efficient windmill.
Yeah, like I don't think like the windmills of yore were very slow at producing these kinds of things, and today we need like production capacity would like we to it would be more environmentally destructive to switch back to such a production method, because the amount of extra infrastructure you would need to make the sheer amount of factories you would need to have the same amount of output would be ridiculous, probably impossible.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so in some ways we are doing this because we are using wind and solar electricity and water electricity to power the same processes that we are quickly electrifying. So that sort of fits. I'm kind of like, there's been a few stories that I've heard that have made me smile a little bit when it comes to this situation. Like, I haven't seen the details of it, but apparently the climate change bill in the US is actually like a bigger deal than I thought it was.
Yeah, it's. I heard didn't Hank Green make a video about that?
I haven't seen it, but I've been seeing that people are kind of happy about it. But there's a couple things together that I think make me very happy, which was one, there was an article. I sometimes check a website called oilprice.com, which is sort of the trades for people who are in oil speculation as an area of the, people who stonks, but for oil.
Yeah.
And all of the sort of prediction firms are all pretty much thinking that 2020 was the peak of our oil production, or our oil production and oil consumption. And everyone's noticing that oil price go up lately. And the reason is it's because the oil companies, apparently, there's been a change in the sort of culture at the top of oil companies now, where they're now more under the impression that basically their mode is now more of managed decline, to just juice as much as they can get out of what they have. So because the reason why prices are going up is because all of the oil companies have basically decided to not start any new exploration and just charge more for the oil they have, which sucks because it's basically them extorting people for energy, especially at a time because they know that everyone is sort of choking because Europe is sort of at the precipice of losing all of its gas pretty soon.
We need gas. We need it so bad. Our energy bills are so high.
Like, we're like, what's it called? We're one winter away from like Germany invading Ukraine to help Russia. Like,
you're not wrong.
Yeah. But that means is that like these oil companies, from what I can tell from their own sort of internal stuff, is that their long-term plan is basically they're done with exploration. And it's kind of like how Trump tried to bring coal back, but he couldn't because there's just nobody is dumb enough to invest in new coal plants or in new coal mines. So these oil companies realize that any new oil exploration they do is going to be limited. And it's expensive. So they're just going to not do it and charge more for the oil they are producing until that runs out. And so like that prediction made me a lot more optimistic than I have been in a long time. And that was combined with another story that was by some climate scientists, two stories actually. One, that we are sort of out of the apocalypse zone, apparently. The ship is steering too slow, and there's still a whole lot more that needs to be done. But the sort of like amount of warming that would have caused apocalyptic levels of stuff, like extinction level stuff, is over. There will be a humanity after all of this, which is better than not. And two, the other story on that is that, oh gosh, what was it? That if we were to stop emissions, that the climate might go back to, might like cool down a lot faster than we thought it was going to be. Like we thought like we were going to cause warming for thousands of years because of this, but it turns out it might be more decades if we can reverse the emissions.
Like it's more fixable than people thought.
Yes.
That's good.
So those things all together made me like, oh, you mean, because like it was so profound. I don't know if you've been in the same boat, but like I spent so long being like almost assuming that we don't have a future, that like humanity just doesn't have a future. And for the first time, I'm like, there's like going to be a post climate change humanity.
Yeah.
And that was really profound for me, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And that's good because I have a bebe who I would like, who is, going to see the 22nd century. He could live long enough to see the NX-01 go into space. So
The NX-01, goddamn.
we're getting to it.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a good thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Also, this is like less stuff, but this is another thing I follow along. And that is there's been some ridiculously big breakthroughs on fusion technology, like in this year alone.
Yeah, I'm not as optimistic on that one though, because I'm also like very optimistic when it comes to fusion. I really hope that becomes something nice. But there's like an ongoing joke in the like nuclear power community where it's like, fission is just 20 years away every year, because I like it's been 20 years away since like 1995.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know when it's going to be a viable thing, and it's definitely not a viable thing in enough time for what we need to do to deal with the climate crisis. But there was like the sort of California lab that achieved ignition for the first time. That was like a huge deal where they were actually able to make the reaction self-perpetuating, where it was like fusing on its own without needing lasers, and that's a huge breakthrough. That's like the thing that everybody was trying to make happen.
in California, right? They've done that in Europe, I think.
Yeah.
Because I know that they're building like a new one in like Switzerland or some shit, because it's always the Swiss. That's gonna
Swiss
be
or the
like
French?
bigger. Yeah, it's one of them. They love that shit, and they're gonna build one that's like bigger and hotter than anyone before, and maybe that's the one that's gonna be able to. Good.
There's a big tokamak being built in the UK as well. It's sort of supposed to do that as well in the next few years too. It could be cool.
It's gonna be wild, because we might live to see an era past fossil fuels and like an alternative to renewables. I guess this is like, because this isn't a renewable, right? Like this is super powered nuclear power.
Fusion is a power source that is not technically renewable, but the fuel for it is like made from water. Like it's made with deuterium, which you can make by like shooting electricity through water.
Yeah, it's practically infinite.
Yeah, it's like if we ever figure out thorium and we can use that as a fuel. It's like we have enough thorium to fuel nuclear power plants for millions of years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have been very like pessimistic about fusion power, and then there's been a few things this year specifically that I've been very optimistic. There's also that other company that had a big breakthrough where they weren't doing the like tokamak magnetic one, but they were doing the one where they shoot a pellet full of hydrogen and then shoot it with like another like basically they take like a little pellet of hydrogen and then shoot it. And then they shoot it basically with like the most powerful gun imaginable that hit it so hard that it fuses. And they just do that enough times that it creates more heat than it causes to fire this like basically a Gauss rifle they use to shoot it. It's like,
this is such an American solution. I'm sorry.
In some ways, it feels like it feels like the Soviet solution. Like I'm feeling like a fusion reactor made by the Americans. It's like, this is magnetic containment. It uses state-of-the-art lasers. It burns like 10 megatons of electricity every second to make a little bit. And the Soviets be like, we shoot it with gun.
We shoot it with very fast gun.
Yes, we shoot it with magnet gun. It works.
It goes boom. We make energy.
So yeah. I don't know how often this stream just veers into talking about fusion power. All right.
Rarely. I don't think we've done that before, but it's very fun to talk about fusion energy. Once we get like a proper reactor like actually up and running, that's gonna be a game changer for like the human race.
Yeah, energy is solved at that point.
Like we fixed it.
Have you, by any chance, watched the show For All Mankind?
Yes.
First
Not
of
all
all,
of it, but some of it.
I found out very recently that the reason why it's so good is that its chief writer was one of the chief writers for Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, bet. I could feel that. It has a very Trekky, Deep Space Nine specific energy to
Yeah.
it. At times.
All right, I won't talk too much about it, but in the show in season 3, nuclear fusion is just a thing, and I won't talk more. But there's a twist at the end of season 3 that made me like actually like laugh out loud hysterically, and I have a feeling that you will also like lose your shit when you see it. It is the funniest twist ever. I won't tell you what it is though, obviously.
Oh shit! Damn it. Yeah, because I'm not there yet. I'm midway season 2.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it. It's a very, very good twist, and it is the funniest thing I've ever seen. But it's perfect. It's the perfect thing. I love it. It is the perfectest thing.
Amazing. Season 3 is the one where they go to Mars, right?
Yeah, season 3 is primarily about the Soviets, Americans, and a private corporation all racing to go to Mars in 1994. Perfect. No notes.
Perfect.
Best concept.
I really like that show. I'm really happy that like alternate history fiction is kind of becoming mainstream like now in the last couple of years.
Yeah, fusion. For All Mankind is like, it's like alternate history but good because it's like oh, this is focused on. It uses the setting to tell a story you couldn't tell in the real world.
Yeah,
and that's what's good about it.
Exactly.
Like a lot of times,
we as a society needed Men in a High Castle as a like starter, being like, what if the Nazis won? Haha, okay, maybe. And then like, okay, but now we can actually do fun stories. We can actually have fun in this space.
Well, there's like a lot of alternate history, I find, that doesn't have like, the author is much more preoccupied with making a Wikipedia about their setting than it is about the story. And in many times, the story they tell is some sort of thing that feels superfluous to the setting. Like, what's it called? If you were to guess, the Man in the High Castle's rough, like, thing it's trying to say is, like, y'all don't appreciate how close we came to a very different world because of World War II. But, like, a lot of alternate history is just, like, a generic story that is way too focused on telling the details of the setting, while this one uses the alternate history to tell a story that you really couldn't in any other genre. And I like that. And its uses of like deepfakes and stuff like that has been really good.
It's really good.
But the show is obscenely good. I also like that it's not cynical. Like, it is a show that sometimes the plot twist is a good thing happens.
I know, that's so nice. It's nice. It's hopeful.
Yeah,
it's wonderful in that sense.
If you were to summarize the theme of the show, it's that humans are capable of great things, and that when push comes to shove, we rise to our better natures. And I'm like, yeah, Star Trek.
That's a Star Trek. Yeah, we like that.
That's what makes Star Trek so good.
Does the anti-communism get like toned? I know it's like the show is like, you know, set during the Cold War, the height of the Cold War, during the space race, from the American perspective. So like, I'm not faulting the show for having anti-communism in it, but does that like evolve with the show?
Season 3 has still a little bit of like shittiness in the Soviet Union, but kind of shittiness that the Soviet Union actually did. But
it's not like over the top.
No,
communism bad.
No, season 3 features now like I'm not going to spoil too much, but season 3 does have Soviet characters who are named and are regular parts of the story, and they're sympathetic and they're like part of the plot. And it's very heavily implied that season 4 is going to have a lot more stuff in the Soviet Union.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
Yes. So season 4 is definitely going to have a lot more USSR stuff.
Wait, hold on. What year did you say they go to Mars?
1994.
1994. The Soviet Union in 1994. So in this alternate universe, it's
Oh
still
yeah,
around.
it's still around.
Oh,
Gorbachev is
now I
premiere in
gotta watch it
1994.
more.
Yeah. In fact, actually, as of the end of season 3, it implies that the Soviet Union is still around in 2003. So.
See, okay, now we're talking. This is how you get me to finish a show. Fuck yes.
It's really good. Yeah.
This is the future that I want. I want a Soviet Union with internet culture.
So they could. Eastern Europe has a, like I have seen in like Russia, there is an interesting shitposting game in those countries. So I imagine that Soviet internet would have been, depending upon how much, if they like firewall to China themselves, they probably would have. But yeah. Okay.
Iron Firewall.
Yeah, the Iron Firewall. Okay. So the next question we got here is, have you read anything from libcom.org? I've been binging their articles recently.
From lib?
Libcom.org. It's an anarcho-communist like news website. I have read several of their articles. They are good. I've never binged a news website, but it's libcom.org. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've seen them around, but I haven't really read them, unfortunately. They seem nice. I initially wrote libcom, which is a very different thing.
Actually, it's been long enough that we missed so many fun discourses. We missed Peach Mom Discourse. Which was like a very fun single day on Twitter.
Yeah, when this person became the main character of Twitter for a little bit.
Of just a person who hates their husband.
Fucking love speeches.
What was the other? Yeah, she became the feminine alternative to Bean Dad.
Oh, the Soviet-Afghan war doesn't happen because they pull out, right? They don't support the Afghan communist government like at all. So because they spend the money on the space race instead.
Oh yeah, okay. Yep. There's also I think it was in season 2 where I think that it's probably at a point where you are right now where like they kind of imply like that they find the flaw in Challenger before it goes off. And it's like they prevented Challenger from like they took all of the things that would that like kind of killed space exploration in our timeline and like work their way into like, oh, but it didn't happen in this one.
Yeah, so it's gonna keep going. Yeah. They shift money around so it keeps going. That's how we can justify being to Mars in 1995.
Yeah.
Fuck, I'm gonna watch this show so much tonight.
Yeah, I also just love like that they do that. They go up and like you hear like the soundtrack, because like season 3, they're into like where I have like very primordial memories. Like I think like when they're like launching into space, they start playing like Black Hole Sun, and I'm like, grunge Mars. They went to Mars before Kurt Cobain died. I think they also had another thing in there. Like, I love the little things of this world building of the alternate history. Like, they imply that John Lennon didn't die, and then he kept making stuff, and it's great.
I know they have a website where they show like various historical events between the seasons, because I remember reading a little bit of it, but after season 1, because they like skip like a decade. So yeah. Oh, that's a good show. Yeah,
It's a great show.
Sorry for derailing.
It is a sleeper hit, because the thing is, like, it's an amazing show that I don't see anybody talking about, and it makes me mad because it's so good. And I know it's not just because it's on Apple Plus, because everyone was talking about that fucking Ted Lasso show for like months.
Yeah, which I'm never gonna get the hype of. It's also a great game if you want to like get me to play more Kerbal Space Program, which it has done.
And okay, what do we got next? I'm studying to be a high school history teacher in the U.S. I have a BA in history, working on teaching MA. Good. We love we stand a high school history teacher.
We do.
Do you have some recommendations for Marxist histories of the U.S. and the Americas in general? The one that... So first of all, very hard to do as a high school history teacher because America has like a lot more of a politically fraught history on what history textbooks they can teach. But if you're just using it for general interest, the ones that always stick out to me as really good books to get started on are the classic, which is A People's History of the United States. And there's sort of a sequel to it, which is like a modern version. Those are the Howard Zinn books of American history are really good. They're not so great on talking. They have a gender-sized hole in a lot of its writing, but it's still really good. George Chauncey, who is a queer historian who writes a lot about the gay subcultures in America before Stonewall, before gay rights became a movement. And there's a lot of really good stuff in his work. I wouldn't say it's Marxist per se, but it is a really good type of history that doesn't make it into most major curricula. And what's it called? I think Lies My Teacher Told Me or something like that. Lies My History Teacher Told Me by James Lowen. That's another really good one. And my favorite one that probably was the secret book that actually like caused me to become a leftist that I read in high school was called Rogue Nation: An Introduction to the World, the America the Rest of the World Knows, which covers a lot of major... That one's more focused on American foreign policy, but there's a lot of really good ones. Like that's the one where I learned like, oh, Hiroshima wasn't necessary. Interesting. So those are my recommendations, I think, to start. I imagine that you don't read a lot of American history, but I don't know.
Yeah, not really. I think a book that I read was The Making of the English Working Class, but that's about England. So, but it's pretty good. That was sort of my introduction to like more Marxist history writing.
Was there a book that was the thing that set you off on your journey towards the radical left?
Not really. I started reading. I think the thing that got me like interested in politics generally was probably like Piketty. Piketty's what's it called? Capital for a New Age or New Capital or something.
Oh, Capital, yeah, Capital in the 21st Century, I think.
Yes,
that is another book that a lot of people have recommended to me. I haven't read it.
It's very good. It's not one that you like find yourself agreeing with too much, but it's very good at like making a sort of like modern version of Capital with a lot of like, maybe a bit tame takes about how to solve it, but it's a very good introduction to sort of like, capital theory and the modern day. So it doesn't feel outdated at all. Yeah. It's really good.
I also forgot about reading W.E.B. Du Bois, who was a historian, a Marxist historian, who has written several books on basically a Marxist history of the Black experience in America. The two really big ones three really big ones that I think are really worth reading are The Souls of Black Folk, which is the first book to really talk about what's today called double consciousness when it comes to colonized people or decolonization theory. The other is The Gift of Black Folk, The Negroes in the Making of America. This is from 1920s, so the language is a little outdated, obviously. The other one is Black Reconstruction in America. So these are older books, but they're really, really good, and they sort of hit that thing of Marxist American history.
Good stuff to have like in the classroom library.
Mm-hmm. And the fact, the thing, this is the part. American historiography has been so anti-left that W.B. Du Bois, even though like some of those books are over 100 years old, are still some of the most big works of Marxist American history because there's just so few Marxist U.S. historians.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what we got next. As you may or may not be aware, the U.S. Senate recently passed a somewhat good but wholly inadequate gun control bill. A part of the bill that's not been reported on is a clause that says reservations will get financial grants if their tribal councils opt to adopt identical laws. How do you feel about that, i.e. the U.S. government trying to financially incentivize Native American governments to do what they want? Does it make a difference, like in this case, it's a good thing that they want them to do, or is it just soft imperialism either way? It's not soft imperialism, that's just straight up imperialism. And first of all, Native Americans are the last people in America I want to not have guns. But yeah, like, this is sort of the thing they did to get the drinking age to 21 in the US was something similar. They threatened funding on like highways and stuff like that, but the US doesn't have a good track record of respecting the national sovereignty of their reservations. That's for sure. That's all I got on it. Do you have anything?
Not really. Like, you know, I'm not really that into that era of history, unfortunately.
Well, this is like modern day stuff, but yeah, Americans, by and large, don't think too much about their indigenous people. And
I mean, you could say the same thing about like basically any colonial nation, including over here in Sweden. Like, people here don't really think about like indigenous people like at all.
Yeah. All right. Okay, I don't know what this word is, but maybe you'll know. Any classes having solidarity protests for the Dutch farmers where you are, Tristan? Those knobs drove through my area last week. I don't know what a classes is. I'm guessing it's some sort of Dutch word.
Jerkasses?
It's spelled Gaclasses.
I don't know that word.
Unless that is like a Danish person or a Dutch person trying to say jackass. It's another word for jackass. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. I don't know what the solidarity... I don't know what happened with the Dutch farmers at all. So this is completely outside of my knowledge.
Yeah, me neither. There's been murmurings over like having big protests, but nothing really is happening. So uninformed.
Yeah, I have been particularly checked out in 2022 for obvious reasons, but does remind me the Dutch thing reminds me that I found out that we're likely going to be going for Kelly's work on a trip to Johannesburg in 2024.
Ooh.
So I got to do something fun there.
That's fun. Now I have to see if I can remember where the fuck Johannesburg is.
It's the capital of South Africa.
There we go. Well, the thing that fucks with me about fucking South Africa and capitals is that they have 3 of them, which is just cheating.
Yeah, fair.
You can't do that.
But yeah, so like that's the main thrust. Let me see. Let's try to see if we can hot take this. Dutch farmers protest 2022. Let's see.
Think about emissions.
Yeah, it's either going to be people of color existing or doing anything about climate change. Those are usually the 2 things they're mad about.
Yeah.
Series of demonstrations by livestock farmers characterized by the use of tractors to block roads and occupy public spaces. Triggered by a proposal to have the country's livestock in an attempt to limit agricultural pollution in the Netherlands. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like something Canada would latch on to for sure. Because Canada, the Canadian right is part of a death cult that wants the Earth to die as fast and as hard as humanly possible. So any like anti-emissions control protests will spur up angry people in Canada. So I can see why this would do that.
We don't really have that debate here in Sweden because our entire like environmental discourse has been shifted a fair bit in a good way. Like the Overton window here has like shifted into like environment good, which we like because I guess we're proud of Greta Thunberg. So we don't really have that.
She's based.
Yes, but the thing that we have here is like gas tax shit. So it's like very sort of like even our most like radical anti-environment people here are pretty tame, so, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Canada's environmental policy is well, right now we got Justin Trudeau, your uncle, who is basically his policy is very much like a lot of liberal policy on climate, which is say that you care a lot about the environment and propose a lot of legislation that you know won't pass while investing fuck tons of money into developing more oil.
The Obama method.
The Obama method, yeah. Canada has this weird thing where our economy is so hopelessly dependent on oil that we have our right is like laser focused on making sure that that the earth ends. They would rather the entire world burn so that Alberta could survive economically for like another 2 quarters. Because the thing is, like, Alberta produces so much fucking money for the country, and like we had like 1 quarter where oil prices went down and the entire province collapsed.
God, it's awful.
Like because the thing is, like, they did no sovereignty fund like the Norwegians. They did no they didn't like build a Dubai like the UAE did.
Instead they're buying Hummer limousines because I hear that's very common in Alberta.
Yeah, and also negative negative taxes. Like you just started giving people money.
Yeah.
And it has led
which, to be fair, it can be based.
Yes.
Maybe not when it comes to oil.
Yes, but what it has resulted in is a province that has no plan for after oil. Yeah. And when the oil dries up, which it looks like it's going to start happening, they're like, as Canada does, because Canada's a kind of like a raw primary resource extraction country, everyone's just going to leave and there's going to be nothing left. And yet we're like investing billions and billions of dollars into pipelines and bullshit like that. I don't know. It's a terrible, terrible thing to do.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, this one is very apropos, especially given the events of the last few days. This was submitted on August 3rd, but it's definitely a bigger one to talk about today. How much longer will the U.S. establishment continue supporting Saudi Arabia? The U.S. isn't even their top trade partner anymore. That is true. Saudi Arabia is now like basically closer to China than it is to the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like Saudi Arabia is like undergoing like massive projects now so that they can become they want to become the like nexus point of the Belt and Road Initiative into Africa, don't they? Because they really want to, because like it's not going to go through Israel, like that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So they want to they're basically constructing like a massive rail and pipeline network that's just like going straight through the country.
You know that things are going in a decent direction when Saudi Arabia is trying to figure out how to pivot off of oil.
Yeah. But I saw something about like, because they want to build some sort of like long ass city. It's not really going to be a city. It's just going to be a big ass train line. Because they want to basically become like the land Suez Canal between Asia and Africa.
Yeah,
so,
that's lucrative.
Yeah,
It's
if
smart.
they can pull that off, then they're going to be good for the next couple of like decades.
Yeah, like the 21st century. This is the thing that people aren't talking about a whole lot right now. But the latter 21st century, like, is going to be like kind of in the way that like Asia and like the rise of East Asia defined like the late 20th century and the early 21st. Africa is going to define the late 21st century. There are countries like Cote d'Ivoire and Nigeria and like and I'm trying to think of some other ones. They have very big populations and they are just starting to really, really industrialize due to a fuckload of Chinese investment in their infrastructure. Because Chinese are building they're building highways, they're building fucking cities and everything like that. And on top of that, a lot of African countries have like the monopoly on extremely precious resources for high technology fields and stuff like that. That it's going to be huge because there's just going to be a whole lot more, like a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of resources, and so yeah, if you want to get in, make deals, be friends with African countries because they are the future.
Nigeria is going to be the big one, right? Like people are basically saying that like that's going to end up being like the China of Africa.
Yeah,
it's going to be like Nigeria or potentially like the East African Federation if that ever becomes a thing. But
it's a few decades away from having a bigger population than the United States.
Yeah.
It's massive. Tristan, will you ever make a retro? Oh, thank you for the $6.99 super chat, Meow Nyan. Will I ever make a retrospective on the aftermath of the Harper government because wow, things got nuttier since the Tories? Yeah, that is true.
So are you gonna make a retrospective?
I mean, I feel like, I could, but I feel like that there are other people who have. See, this is the thing. There are other people who are way better expertise on these kind of topics than I am, but they don't make YouTube videos. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's like a video that should be made, but it should be made by somebody smarter on the topic than I am. But if no one's gonna make it, I might have to. Because yeah, Harper did like really mess up Canadian politics in a lot of ways. Mostly because it was we had sort of like two right-wing parties that merged, and he was their first leader. And he was like, I'm going to be the leader of the more right-wing party and push like Canadian conservatives more to the right, basically. And also at that time was like when George Bush was prime minister, and George Bush, so everything in America just infiltrates Canada at some point. But the reason I was like, well, how long can the U.S. establishment continue to support Saudi Arabia? First of all, as long as they are a geopolitical strategic ally of Israel, they will keep doing it no matter what, especially because they are also sort of the only power rival of Iran in that region as well. And those are the two main reasons why the U.S. supports them. But I don't know if...
I think my brain like zoned out for a second because I thought you were still talking about the Tories in Canada. And
no.
We're talking about like how they are... like the only regional power balancing Iran. And
no.
What
Coming,
the fuck is Harper doing?
Yeah, no. We were coming back to the Saudi Arabia question because the U.S. supports Saudi Arabia for two reasons: one, to protect Israel, and two, to basically pump up the rival power to Iran in the region. But I don't know if you've been following the news in the last few days, but it turns out that a certain former president of the United States got $2 billion for selling nuclear secrets to Saudi Arabia.
Wait, really?
Do you not think that's what the old FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago was about, is that they think that he was selling nuclear secrets to the Saudis?
No.
And
really?
Because the Trumps have gotten a suspiciously large amount of money. Like Jared Kushner got like $2 billion. He just Trump himself got paid like $170 million to play golf. And there are people who are thinking that the raid had to do with nuclear secrets. And so there apparently the case is that, and also that he's being it was leaked by Breitbart accidentally that what they were investing was a violation of the Espionage Act, which is the act that's used for basically giving secrets to enemy countries. So
Amazing.
people are thinking that he was, because he was like in a huge amount of debt, which was also established after he was president, that possibly his debt was being used to leverage huge payouts for nuclear secrets. And it's like, that is the most Trump thing to do, that Trump could do.
I desperately hope it's true. I want to see this. It's gonna be like a shit show of like American political history, but I need to see it.
Yeah, like what's it called? If you've been following it along, like you've seen weird things like Marjorie Taylor Greene calling for the dissolving of the FBI, and
Yeah.
like you see like the thing is that after it came out that it was an Espionage Act investigation, and that it was it was the Espionage Act, and that and like there's a lot of conservative commentators who are like struggling to have a take, and you have people like Rand Paul who are calling for the revoking of the Espionage Act, which like okay, that means that Julian Assange essentially is going to be free. 'Cause that's what they're trying to get Julian Assange on.
Yeah, the fact that so many like American political figures are like trying to like burn down their entire institutions because they might like snap against their own leader.
But like, if America accidentally gets rid of the FBI and the Espionage Act to get Trump off, that's a net positive in my book.
Yeah, that's a win. Critical support to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I'll take the dub on that one.
God, that's horrible. I hate this. This is actually like a nightmarish a little bit. The fact that this is even a possibility that I'm like, yeah, that sounds like something that he would do, is legitimately like stupid. That like why is Donald Trump okay? Why can we always count on Donald Trump to do the most stupid potentially thing that anyone could do?
Mm-hmm.
How did people elect this man president?
To own the libs. 2016 was a very different time, and holy shit, it was a much more innocent time. But yeah. Oh my god. Oh yeah, and the other thing, did you hear about the story about what he did to his ex-wife?
That he buried her in a parking lot to classify it as a cemetery so that he could get tax benefits.
Yes. Which is also the most
like
on-brand
right?
thing
like,
that... Yes, but it is also the most on-brand Trump action that I could think of. Buried her in a pauper's grave in the parking lot of his golf course for tax benefits.
For tax benefits. But we can agree that, because, we've always known that he's basically, like a fascist idiot. But, that's just straight up narcissist. That's psychopathic.
Yeah.
Right? That's a little bit psychopathic.
He is
to do that.
Almost definitely a psychopath, yes.
And I don't mean that with, a negative intonation toward, psychopathy or whatever, but, he has that. He has to have that. Because, this is he can't be a person who has a a brain like any other. This man has a damaged mind and soul.
Yes, and he has damaged it all along with us. We all have to live in his horrible brain for the rest of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, something's seriously wrong with him. Also, some of the pictures show that because there was some rumors that he might not be able to run in 2024 because his health is taking a downward spiral, and some pictures of him came out where he's not heavily made up and he looks bad.
Yeah. Which is why I desperately hope that he runs.
Yes.
And 2 or 3 days before the election, he just croaks it. Can we just have a freebie?
Yeah. What's it called? When we defund the CIA, because they investigated Trump and they do an asset sale, we can buy the heart attack gun they used on Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Or the cancer powder they used on Hugo Chavez.
We have to have a charity stream so we can raise funds to buy the heart attack gun.
Start an Indiegogo campaign to raise funds to buy the heart attack gun. Oh man.
Oh,
Oh man, that is a lot.
how
But
is this our timeline? Like, how is this real life? I feel like history wasn't this silly before.
no.
Like, surely,
Help, I'm living in interesting times and I don't like it.
you know.
I hate living in the part of the I hate living in the part of history that the history books write about.
Mm.
Okay. Ooh, are you ready for the liberal podcast response zone?
Yes, I can't wait.
It's been a while since we've done
Been
the
a
liberal
while.
podcast response zone.
Yeah.
A little while back, the Lib podcast did an episode where he said something to the effect of, quote, I think the best thing we can do is support the Democratic Party and cheerlead anything remotely good they do because them staying in power is the only way we retain any semblance of democracy, but no one wants to hear that. What would you say to someone who thinks like that? Someone who believes not only should you vote Democrat no matter what, but bad-mouthing the Democrats in any way is actively dangerous because them losing power would lead to such dire consequences. Please don't say something like lib gonna lib because I don't think this is a super unreasonable way of thinking. Part of the Nazis' rise to power was the far leftists in Germany refusing to make common cause with moderates to oppose them. And I think the support the Dems no matter what branch of the US left is partly the result of people looking at that and deciding to do the hyper opposite.
First of all, very different political systems. Um, in like Weimar Germany and modern day America, because America has one political party split in two. Weimar Germany, as problematic as it was, had more. So the balance of like choosing strategic options to how to vote works a bit differently.
The US also doesn't have a faction of conservative monarchists who want to use Donald Trump to bring back the Kaiser.
Well, listen, if that existed, then now we're talking. Now we're living in interesting times that I can get on board with. Because that's fun to talk about. Anyway, but I think that the reason why that's a shitty point is because it leads the especially from a leftist point of view, right? Like, because that's what we are. If we don't criticize it, then there is literally no incentive for the Democrats to become better, because the only thing that they will want to do in order to get more voters is to become more appealing to more people. If they have the left in the bag, then they only need to appeal to right-wingers, which is how we get like the shifting overtone window that like goes more and more and more to the right, because they want to take their voters. If we criticize the Democrats and like make them to do concessions, then we force them to self-correct, and we force them to sort of like cull their own ideology from time to time, so that they actually become more efficient, and so that people actually want to vote for them, as opposed to just voting for them to avoid something else. Mm-hmm. And I know, and I'm pretty confident in this opinion, because this is how we got 2016. 2016 was like in the bag for the Democrats. They picked like the most electable politician that they have, right? They picked basically like a shoo-in, very establishment. They have the entire left wing in the bag. They had a very like extreme opponent, and they fucking lost because they were running on the idea that no one would actually vote for an opposing idea. They would just vote for them because they felt entitled to it. So we can't let a political party feel entitled to it. We need to keep like forcing them to self-correct and forcing them to self-improve. Otherwise, they're just gonna stagnate. And voters then will either choose apathy because Democrats don't give a shit about them, or they will choose the political party that actually has ideas, which is the Republican Party, and they're bad ideas. Mm-hmm. That's my vibe.
Yeah, the Democratic Party always like banks on people being so afraid of the Republicans that they'll vote for them, which then leads to low expectations. The other thing too is that there's something extremely ironic about the only way that we need to save democracy is that you can only vote for this one political party and never criticize them. Feels like that feels like some that feels like some tanky discourse there. Like, the only project to save the left is to support the capitalist country of China and never criticize it ever, no matter what they do.
Like that's not how we build better politics.
No.
The way to support an ideology that you believe in is to support the ideology that you believe in, and to convince other people to do that too, and to actually make it something to believe in. It's not to pick the least bad option, because then we're just like trying to appeal to as many people as possible at any given time, which means that your political party means nothing. Like, what does the Democrat Party even stand for at this point? Abortion rights? Not really, because they can't do that. The environment? Not really, because they can barely do that. Like, they don't really, like, even their progressive values that they have, like, they work fine in local elections, but on the federal level, they have no ideology, except for maintaining the status quo. And then the Republicans are just...
Which is an ideology. It's just that is the definition of a conservative party.
Exactly. Yeah. And so if we want something to actually happen in a progressive way, we have to force the political party to do that. And it works, because the main problem in American politics, which is not the case in other countries, but in America, is voter apathy. That's the main problem. It's voter access and voter apathy. You can win any election if you get more people to vote. That's how Trump won, because he got more Republicans to vote for him. He didn't convince like a bunch of liberals to vote for him. He convinced like Republicans to show up in droves to actually vote for him.
Yeah.
And the left can do the same thing. If they get 10% more of leftists to vote for the Democrats or whatever, then they win every time.
Yeah, the Democrats still treat it like it's the 90s, where the way that they're supposed to win is to coax over these like undecided centrist voters who don't know which one to side with. And it's like, that hasn't been the case in decades. And every time they try to find undecided voters, they just get basically Republicans who are also really stupid. That's how you ended up with like Ken Bone and like all of those weirdos, and like all of those, like every time they have like a panel, they try to find undecided voters, and they just find the dumbest human beings they can possibly find. Because to be undecided in this day and age is just the weirdest thing. Because it's now about like marshaling turnout. And the Democrats are still like, we're trying to coax these like centrists who don't exist. So I would also argue, I don't like the Cartesian plane concept of politics that that Democrats and a lot of Kaiserreich people on Discord seem to like, where like the politics doesn't really fit on a compass. And so, like trying to get centrists is just, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. They don't exist. They're not real. There are people who think they are, but they aren't.
They don't exist.
So you have to have a proposal. Imagine if like a party ran in like Sweden that did not have a manifesto. Their manifesto was, hey, me. They would get creamed, right?
You get destroyed. I mean, like the Swedish political systems work also like a bit differently too. So it's like we have our own like issues here, where it's like we're not even trying to mobilize people to vote because we have pretty high voter turnout, and we're not even trying to like convince centrists, because like I'm part of the left party. The only people who are like to the right of the party that I'm part of are like social democrats, and they're gonna vote for the social democrats. So it's like, what's the point?
In proportional representation, you can win without forming government.
Exactly. Like, and so it's a completely different sort of like calculation, because in America, it's like you either win or you lose. It's very like black
Ricky
or
Bobby.
white. Whereas it's like, but this is what I'm saying every time. Like every time we talk about this, like America needs like massive like electoral reform. Like from the complete basis, it needs to completely change, because just having two political parties doesn't make any fucking sense. And as long as that is the case as it is right now, it's going to keep having these issues. This is not something that like you can solve by either supporting the Democrats or even criticizing the Democrats. Criticizing the Democrats and like shifting them to the left is like, it's a band-aid for a solution, but the real solution is to split the Democrats up into like 5 different political parties and just vote for the one that you like, and then have proportional representation in a coalition government.
Pretend that the Democratic Party is Germany and you are Stalin after World War II. You need to deindustrialize the Democratic Party and split it into 5 countries so that it never invades you again.
Yes. There's a good joke that I saw. Speaking of like this stupid 2-party system that America has, and also the UK kind of like every fucking first
and
past the
Canada
post country
too.
has this.
Yeah.
Like the Anglosphere is fucking weird for having this political system. But anyway, Raul Castro made a fun joke the other day, because I keep up with Raul Castro.
He's your great uncle, so.
Yeah, my great uncle. Yeah, exactly. I met him on a family gathering, and he made this joke, where, people criticize Cuba for having, for only having like one political party. It's more complicated, but like that's what people criticize Cuba for. And he said that, well, would it be better if we had 2 political parties like the U.S.? And everyone says like, yes, of course, it's, that's a lot more like democracy. Even though like their ideologies are very similar, and it's just like, yeah, well, okay, but it's still democracy because we get to choose. And so he says, okay, I'll go back to Cuba, and I'll make 2 political parties. One will be run by me, and one will be run by Fidel.
Yeah, it's like the Soviet joke where it's like Americans are so decadent that they are a one-party state, that they're so, or no, America is a one-party state, but they're so decadent they have 2 of them.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good joke.
Yeah. Yeah, Canada does have a social democratic party, but they list more. They think that they need to list more to the right to form government, and they never wins. They always lose when they do that, but they still keep trying it anyway because they hire the same consultants that Obama hired. But yeah. Canada's been fighting electoral reform now for like several elections because the Conservatives want to keep it the way it is. The Liberals want to move to STV, which is like better but still stupid. The sort of single transferable vote where you rank all of the candidates and then they just like everybody who had basically after they get the totals, they take everybody who voted 1 for they take the lowest candidate, and everyone who voted 1 goes to their number 2, and then they keep doing that until somebody gets over 50%.
Yeah.
And then the NDP wants to go for proportional representation. The Liberals then formed government and then realized that they formed a majority government with 39% of the population and less votes than the Conservatives overall. And all of a sudden, they didn't care about this issue anymore.
Yeah.
What's my issue with STV? STV is still, it still tends to homogenize down to 2 major parties.
Yeah. Like you have a lot of options, but at the end of the day, 2 of them are going to be the major ones.
Yes.
This is why proportional representation is the only thing that fucking works.
Yes. And we also are trying to figure out whether or not we should keep our Senate. Like the Conservatives wanted to keep the Senate. The Liberals wanted to...
a Senate?
Yeah, we do. They're appointed. They're not elected. They're appointed by the Prime Minister. And they are way less powerful than they are in the U.S. They are basically they can't pass anything. All they do is take what Parliament puts up and basically can either send it back for revisions or not.
So it's like the House of Lords, kind of.
It's almost exactly. I think it's the exact idea of the House of Lords. And like, for example, like
we abolished our upper house in like the 50s or some shit like that.
Yeah, people very rarely think of the Canadian Senate, and they most often rubber stamp everything. It's just sort of like it's mostly a retirement home for like established politicians. But the Conservatives wanted to keep it.
Yeah.
Or sorry, the Conservatives want it to be elected. The Liberals want to keep it, but have it so that there are like senators don't belong to any political party, so that they're all independent. And the NDP are like, get rid of that shit.
Yeah. The only common sense fucking idea.
Yeah. And then then there's also the Palpatine Party, which is to become the Senate because they are the Senate.
Oh, I belong to that one over here.
Yeah. What about the Senate, Mia? I am the Senate. Just show up.
I am the municipal council.
The first day you show up at council, you have to like have the black robe on and just be like, I love
can do that.
I love Stockholm. I love democracy.
I can legitimately do that. They're all televised, so they're televised and archived, so I can do that.
Is the LP gonna have any issues with you doing that? Are they chill?
The
left party?
who? Oh, no, they'll be fine. They're all very chill.
I now like you just come in like I welcome Stockholm into my new empire.
I made a joke the other day. Someone asked me like what my vision is for the municipality that I'm in, which is like a part of like Greater Stockholm, which is many municipalities. Mm-hmm. And the answer that I had was that like my ideal vision, if I had total power, would be the People's Republic of Sollentuna. But since I am limited by the fact that I can't declare independence and don't have totalitarian power, I'll settle for like not selling the social housing.
That's called the door in the face technique. You propose something big and then propose something smaller so it seems more acceptable by comparison. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I said too. And
This is how Mia takes over Sweden with thunderous applause.
I'm legitimately going to become like the leader of the country one day. I say this to manifest it.
You're manifesting? You are TikToking too much.
It's true.
Okay.
I'm like this close to ordering like rocks and minerals so I can like keep their healing energies.
Oh no. You just got some pink sauce hiding somewhere in there. Oh man. We missed so many discourses. Oh my god. Pink sauce. August has been fucking crazy.
What is pink sauce? I don't remember pink sauce.
Pink sauce was this sauce that was being sold on TikTok that apparently is just like aioli with like passion fruit in it or something like that. But the thing was that it was just being sold by some rando on TikTok for like $20. And she was selling it in like non-refrigerated containers. And just like people were getting bottles that were like already opened or that were rancid or had like differing levels of like different colors. And like the nutritional information had like typos on it and nothing. It had like said it had 400 servings in the bottle and stuff.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
That's sus.
It was extremely sus. But it was like being sold by, and like also like when someone's like, is this thing regulated by the FDA? And she was just like, it's not drugs.
Oh yeah, it's not FDA approved. What do you mean FDA approved? I'm not selling medical products. Just like, what the fuck? Yeah, that was a weird. I remember that. I remember seeing like some areas around that, but I didn't actually look at it.
Pink sauce discourse.
Pink sauce discourse.
And yeah, like people were having like getting orders where like the bottle was like ruptured on impact, like when it arrived, or it had gone rancid while it was in the mail because she sent essentially mayonnaise in the mail with no like refrigeration at all, and probably no preservatives.
I hate this. This is making me like nauseous.
Okay, insider baseball question. This is a good one. I have an interesting because I am on the precipice of having to have made thoughts about this recently. Do you have any thoughts on the increase in very long videos? There are a lot more videos going into 3, 4, or even 8 hours of edited content in 2021 and 2022. All right, the 8 hours is just an outlier because Quentin Reviews is insane. But
yes.
But there is like the Last Stage Bomber Guy video on Deus Ex or whatever was like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And the thing is, okay, so do I have thoughts on it? Couple. The main thing is that it has its origins in YouTube having a more robust chapters feature. That's the main reason why people do it now.
It's having part 1 and part 2 and like having to like thematically divide your shit now is you don't need to do it anymore because you can just like click on a chapter and you're good.
Yeah. Because I made the fateful decision last week to split my video into 2 parts. But that was mostly because I feel like it worked for the overall narrative structure of the video.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm gonna do that too with my upcoming 2 videos. They're both gonna be like 2 separate videos, but they're very much connected to each other. Just because it's, sometimes that's a warranted thing to do. Yeah.
But overall, like the sort of new norm of like getting to only a certain type of creator can do this, to be honest, where you disappear into the woods for, 14 months and then come back with like a 6-hour YouTube video. There's a very privileged few people who can do that. I can think of basically 2 of them off the top of my head that do that. But even though, videos are trending longer.
Jesse's video about sex and Star Trek's 5.5 hours long.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Jesse's sex and Star Trek TNG one is like ridiculously long.
My God.
But I will say, there is a backlash against it to the point where I remember seeing that 5.5 hour Star Trek and sex video, and I was like, I don't think I need 5.5 hours of sex and Star Trek. I'm good. If it was like an hour, maybe, but 5, oh my goodness. Quentin reviews H Bomber Guy and Contra. Those are the 3 that although Quentin's rather productive, if I remember correctly. Like he puts out, he's the madman who puts out like an 8-hour video like every other month.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, there's going to be an upper limit to it, right?
There has to be, yeah. Like I don't really watch videos that are that long unless they're by a creator that I really know that I'm gonna like. Which is rare, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but I'm a little bit biased here. The longest one I really can make realistically is like an hour and a half, 2 hours at most, maybe. But that's a lot of work to do, and I don't have the energy to do that, and it kind of makes me a little exhausted to see other people do it, especially if it's not well edited down. I feel like a lot of long form content is a little ranty, and that's not what I'm signing up for.
Yeah, we are kind of being, because of the watch time incentive, we're almost being incentivized to be less all of the principles of editing in writing are to make things more concise, punchier, shorter. And the incentives of YouTube, because YouTube wants everyone to be the ultimate YouTube channel that they want is a guy who rants about random shit on a stream for 6.5 hours and posts 30-minute clips every single day or 2-hour clips every single day. That's what YouTube ideally wants. But more produced stuff is hurt. But this is sort of push towards making things more sloppy, more improvised, because they want longer and faster all the time. And it's just the response, if you're just one person, is to lower the quality of the product, which is not good, not a good incentive.
Yeah.
But what can you do? Let me see if we can.
What can you do?
And also that Quentin Reviews is a madman, and we are friends. I can say that. Quentin Reviews is doing I'm doing a video in September on the assassination of President James Garfield, and I have tapped Quentin to explain the difference between the assassinated president and the lasagna cat. Because that was all right, this is the first joke everyone's going to want to make about the lasagna cat and President Garfield, so we're going to get all out of the way. So I'm going to get the top Garfield expert on YouTube, Quentin Reviews, to explain it.
I don't really watch a lot of Quentin Reviews, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry, Quentin, your shit's too long for me.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't watch the 8-hour iCarly video or anything like that either, but all right.
YouTube basically wants just a bunch of Hassan. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, Hassan is the ultimate leftist creator that YouTube wants.
Yeah. Honestly, I do not understand how a lot of YouTubers can make content like every 3 days, where it's like 2 hours long a piece.
They
Like,
just
I don't understand how a person can do that, because I spend like 2 weeks on just reading shit.
That's the thing. That's the trick. They tend to be cishet white guys, and we have been taught very early on that we don't have to read to have opinions on things. Just your gut instinct is the number one. It's just that's what you go for. And so oftentimes those videos you're talking about are clips of like 6-hour mega streams, right? Where they just Google stuff and base their entire opinion on like the first paragraph of Wikipedia or something. That's the trick. I thought Sarah Zed made long videos. Sarah Zed's videos are like quality though. Like she goes deep into the research on those things. And the only way that she can do that is that Sarah Zed, I think, has at least a research assistant, if not an editor as well.
I think she has both.
Yeah. Same with Philosophy Tube. I know that Abby edits her own stuff. She insists on that, but I'm pretty sure she has a research assistant at this point.
I'm not super sure about the research assistant. I think definitely that's true, but like she also has like a whole team to shoot the videos with.
Yeah.
Like you know, editing is one thing, but like shooting the video also takes like fucking ages. And like if you have a production team that like helps you shoot the videos as well, it makes editing so much easier as well.
Yeah,
because then you end up with like good cuts every time.
Will there be a new episode of Probs on Aliens this week? Yes. Scott was on vacation last week, so we couldn't edit the episode. All right, let me see if we can do one more question really fast. And the question is democracy now still okay? They haven't gone full fake news, but they keep pushing the line that Ukraine needs to compromise with Russia. Had a guest from a site that platformed known conspiracy theorist Oliver Stone, and even had Glenn Greenwald a few months ago, despite the years of Trump apologia. I'm getting somewhat concerned. Fair. I haven't been following what they've been up to lately, but that is all, yeah, fair. That is not good. I don't know what to do. Yeah, the conspiracy left. You want the answer? Like, obviously, it seems like they're going down not fully down the path of like the kind of stuff that Sophie from Mars made a video about, but also not super far from that. That's troublesome. The thing is that like, well, I don't know. Like some of the stuff about the Ukraine stuff is a little bit more complex. I don't know what's going on with that, but Glenn Greenwald is quite a problem. Oliver Stone also, he's got some good leftist bona fides, but also he's a conspiracy nut. So I don't know how to go with that. Because he's made some
conspiracy nuts.
Yeah, he's made some amazing content, amazing documentaries about American history, and then you can tell when you get into his particularly weird places because he's like doing a normal, well-established American history, and then all of a sudden he's going on a long tangent about who shot JFK, and you're like, oh, this is the part where he's gone crazy. Okay. Yeah, it's complicated. Like, I also had that same feeling when Marianne Williamson was recently on the Gravel Institute's YouTube channel. And Marianne Williamson's got some questionable takes as well, so...
Yeah. This is why I stay out of a lot of, like, these circles, and I just make my silly little videos.
It's probably smarter. All right, it is 2:00 now. Would you like to tell everybody where they can consume content?
Oh, God in heaven. Is already?
Yeah. Time flew by.
Time did fly by. I'm gonna check if my website is still, like, active. If it's not, because yes, it is. Very good. You can find my stuff on miamulter.com. Still, hopefully. I just renewed the fucking domain name, so I think it's good, but I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, you can find my channel there. I haven't made a video in like a month because I've been on holiday and I got sick with COVID. But I'm making a video on some conspiracy people on Facebook groups who are very stupid, and it's very fun.
That does sound fun.
And you can. It is very fun. It's gonna be a fun episode. It's gonna be a fun video that I'm looking forward to filming this week. And you can also listen to the podcast that I do. It's called Leech Fest. It's on Spotify and all the other podcasting places. We made. Is that out? I'm not sure if that's out yet. We made a. We. It's gonna be out soon, where we made a episode about torture. That's gonna be out soon.
Ooh, spicy. All right.
Very spicy, but very interesting actually, and from a criminal justice standpoint, it's great.
I should have content out for patrons next Monday, inshallah. So we'll see you guys. I'll see you on then.